He estado preocupado haciendo diferentes cosas. Ayer estaba en una conferencia en UCLA.
Wow. ¿Usted la estaba dando?
No, estaba participando. Era en Artificial Intelligence. Muy interesante. ¿Y tú qué tal estás, amigo?
Trabajando, lo más bien. ¿Cómo fue Yonter?
Excelente. ¿Y para ti?
Muy bien, muy bien. Demasiado comida, pero eso es,
Mira, eso es de esperar.
eso es normal.
Sí, es parte del proceso. No se puede. Sabes que yo no me vuelvo loco en Yantes con eso de la comida y
Pero
digo que
está
tengo que
ahí, la
moderarlo.
ponen,
Sí, te
yo
ponen toda
como,
la
yo,
comida y todo tan delicioso y es
yo, co-
difícil.
yo como poco, pero lo ponen arriba de la mesa y da lástima que lo tiren, ¿no?
Sí, y no solamente eso, que no quieres ofender a nadie.
Sí, pero ¿sabe lo que es? Después por 2 días no comí casi nada porque estaba,
Súper lleno.
sí, como bloated.
Sí.
Pero no era bloated, había aumentado algunas libras. In the past, I used to eat like a pig. Y era gordo, pero not anymore. No puedo comer tanto.
No, yo también antes comía más. Reducí mi peso y realmente físicamente me siento mucho mejor.
Sí,
Ah,
pero está cansado.
estoy cansado. A qué horas te levantas?
Oh, eso a las 6, 5:30, 6.
Yo también me levanto a las 5:30 y todo. Entonces, ya para cuando quieren hacer la learning a las 9, entonces ya eso para mí es un poco duro.
No,
Porque
yo termino, hago
sí,
hago el procesamiento del video y me da apenas tiempo para tener los ojos abiertos.
yo también, eso es parte de eso.
Pero a mí me gusta ver de vez en cuando un poco de televisión para algo
Descansar para
diferente.
relajarte.
Sí,
Wow,
pero
wow.
no puedo. Si
No,
tuvimos un share tarde,
es
me,
muy difícil.
me siento enfrente del televisor y a los 10 minutos ya estoy
Durmiendo.
cabeceando, ¿no?
Sí, sí. Eso es parte de todo esto.
Sí.
Ahorita estoy en el proceso. También ayudo en los sábados en tratar de dar un poco de, de palabras para todo el grupo y todo eso. Entonces también me gusta estar preparando todo eso.
Oh, le da una pequeña droga.
Sí, un drush, un Dvartora, entre todos.
¿En dónde? ¿En el Shiro o en casa?
En el templo, en
Entiendo.
el Chabad, donde voy a rezar los sábados. Entonces
Oh,
siempre me gusta estar estudiando durante la semana.
sí.
Ah,
A cuál Chabad va?
voy al que queda aquí en el hotel, el de Yossi Kunin, o a veces es en la casa de él o en el hotel de Beverly Hills.
And Nati Baram serves as the chazan, right?
Nachon, Ernie.
Right, because he's our chazan too.
I will keep quiet. I know I talk to
No,
Nati all the time about you.
we just got a nice Spanish seminar. My Spanish improved just by listening to you two. But George, you didn't teach me any Spanish in high school. We never
I
spoke
never
Spanish.
got to take you to Guatemala, Ernie.
I would have gone.
You know, I spoke. You know who came with me to Guatemala? You won't believe it. Amos Dunst.
When?
When we were in high school, he went with me to Guatemala for a month. And you know who else came down? Norm Nadell.
I didn't know. I did not know that. I mean, I was
So,
friendly. I was
yeah,
friendly with both of them.
yeah.
Amos Dunst wrote Mike Suba.
He is incredible.
He wrote Mike Suba.
Unfortunately, you know, he
Right?
has.
It's George, like Suba on the. I'm pointing to Mike Suba. That was done by
Yeah.
him.
It's amazing. He is an incredible gift. I feel terrible. They now live in Eretz Yisrael, but the problem is he's got horrific allergies. I didn't realize when we were young how bad his allergies are. I mean, very severe, very, very severe. Anyway,
so Norm Nadell, my wife runs into his son all the time. Because his son is a workers' comp lawyer. My wife is workers' comp.
Where's Norman live now these days?
I think he's in Santa Monica, but
yes. Well, now they're living a lot more in out in by one of the coastal cities. He's moved up north near Ventura. He is as he's getting retired and stuff like that. Anyway, let's learn.
Yeah.
I don't want to hold everybody else up, please.
So we're on Kuf Chav Zayin Amud Beis. We'll repeat what we learned. Shalach le Rav Abel Rav Yosef Bar Chama. Ha'omer lechavero avdi ganavta. Reuven says to Shimon, Shimon, you stole my eved. And Shimon says, Omer lo ganavti. I didn't steal him. So then Reuven says, Mativo etzlach. Okay, so what's my eved doing in your house? So Shimon says, Atamachartali, you sold him to me. Or Atonasata li b'matona, you gave him to me as a gift. But he said something that he didn't need to say. Because he's making a claim that the reason that he owns it. If there's no Eidim, we have a principle in halacha, motzi mechaver alav haraya, that if Reuven claims this evid, he has to bring proof. And the other guy has given a decent claim as to what the evid's doing there. I bought him, or you gave him to me. Those are all very reasonable as to what the evid's doing in his house. If he would have been quiet from at that point, that was it. It would remain with him, and Reuven would have no claim on it. However, if the guy then says, Ritzoncha hashbea v'tol, if you want, take a shvua that he belongs to you and take him. And v'nishba, so ena yachal achzer bo. The guy cannot go back on his offer of taking a shvua, even though minadin he didn't have to do it. So the Gemara says, "My kamashul, and what big chiddush is this? We've learned this already." Tanina. Amar lo neman alai abba. My father is the dayan here, and even though normally he would be puzzled to serve as a dayan, the guy says, I trust him. Or neman alai avicha, your father is the dayan, but I will still trust him. There are three boors who don't know any halacha, but he says, I will let them serve as the dayan. And normally a roy bakar is puzzled to be a dayan. Reb Meir, the guy said he can go back on that. Since he was makabel this, he can't go back. So that's very similar to what Rav Abba said. Why did Rav Abba have to say it? So perhaps this machlokes Rav Meir and the Chacham is only regarding judges. This issue of I will rely on him. And that if Dayanim say so, but Rav Abba's case with the Eved, Kamash Malon, that Eitain Lecha Machlokas and Halachic different Chacham. That there was Machlokas even in that case, even it's not judicial, and the halacha is like Chacham that he can go back, that he can't go back on once he tells the guy that he can take a shvuah, he can't go back on it. 1 second. Lately, I'm getting all these pages right in the middle of my shiur. 1 second.
Hi, Dr. Augustine. 1 moment, please. Let me get the nurse for you for parish. Hold on.
What's going on? Okay. Sholach le Rav Abel Rav Yosef Bar Chama. Halacha. Goivin min avodim. If a father owed money and he died, so now the estate is in the hands of the Yisomim. And in the estate are servants, avodim. Now remember, when we talk about avodim, we're talking about Eved Knani. We're not talking about Eved Ivri. Eved Ivris are Jews who are indentured servants because they owed money and they're working to pay off their debt. But the owner doesn't own him. There's no ownership of an Eved Ivri. He has to work for the person, but that's all. An Eved Knani, you actually owned him. That was chattel. It's like you own a piece of land. That was like American slavery. They were assets. They were owned. So a creditor that comes to collect from the estate can collect avodim as payment, because normally we say, well, karka, they can collect from karka because the lien for a loan is on land. Well, avodim are compared to karka. Just like a creditor can collect from karka, they can collect from the avodim. But Rav Nachman Amar Ein Goivin. Rav Nachman says they can't. Because they're considered like metaltalin, not like karka. And therefore the Yisomim don't have to pay the creditor off. If there's no land and they all have metaltalin, the creditor is stuck. Now there's a mitzvah that they should pay back the debt, but the Bezdin can't force them. Now, that was the Gemara's halacha. By the time of the Gaonim, people stopped lending money because they figured, well, we're not going to get paid back. Well, that wasn't good for society, so the Gaonim passed the takana that creditors could collect even from metaltalin. That's the din today. That if a loan was made, the person died, but there's a shtar, he has a shtar against the estate, he can collect from the estate even from metaltalin. That's how the Rambam paskin. Okay. Sholach Rav Avad Rav Yosef Bar Chama. Halacha shlishi b'sheni kosher. So there are certain relationships that you're not allowed to give testimony in Beis Din because you're related to them. But if the relationship is a shlishi b'sheni, for example, the grandson of a brother who gives testimony to one of the brothers of his grandfather, he's kosher. That's distant enough of a relationship that is not posulatus. Rav Amar Af Barishon. Rava said that he can give testimony to his grandfather's brother. And Mar Baravashi Achsha Ba'abada Abba, that you can give testimony even for your grandfather. However, less hilchos of Kamar Baravashi. The halacha is not like Mar Baravashi. So the ones that you can't give testimony in court is a father with a son. They can't testify for each other. Brothers cannot testify against each other. But cousins can testify. And certainly, like to a grandfather, you can testify. Except a father with the son of his son, that's pasul. Because the halacha is not like Mabaravashi. That's Rif in the Rambam. The Ramah says Even the Ramos says we possible even a grandfather. Okay, back to the Gemara. Shalach le Rav Abba Rav Yosef bar Chama. Hayodea lo be'edus karka ad shelo nistam. A person knew could give testimony for his friend regarding a piece of land, but then he became blind. So he knew the facts of the case before he became blind, but then v'nistama, then he became blind. Pasul, he cannot give testimony because now he's blind. But ushmol amar kosher. Why? Efshar demachavin mitzarnacha. He can give testimony exactly. He can recite where the borders of this piece of land were, because that's usually the testimony that was given in court about a piece of land. Where is it? What are its boundaries? Aval, but to give testimony regarding some kind of metaltalin, like a glima, like a shirt, low, because he doesn't see it, and you can't give testimony on something you can't see. However, Rav Sheshes Rafilu beglima. It's interesting. Rav Sheshes was blind, so he's sort of coming to defend blind people. He says, like a blind person can give testimony even from a metaltalin. Because after the machavin, the midas orko, midas rachbo, you can say it was so much, the length was so many feet and the width was so many feet. Aval, lenaska, a gold bar or a silver bar, low, because there's no details on that. However, Rav Papa Amar Filu Naska, that if he was blind, he could give testimony even on the gold bar, because Efshar Machaven, the Midas Mishkalusov, you could say how much it weighed. Now, on all of these, we're going to ask a kasha. Meisvi. Person knew testimony for somebody. And then Nasa Chosno, then he married the guy's daughter. He became his son-in-law. And that's a kirva that makes you puzzled to give testimony. Or he saw something when he was a pikeach, v'nischar, became a deaf mute. And the deaf mute were considered by Chazal not to have full faculties intellectually. And then, or he was a pisech, he could see and then nistama, became blind. Or shpui, he was, normally sane, v'nishtad, became schizophrenic. In all those cases where now he's not intact anymore, puzzle. Aval. He knew the testimony when he was not related. They became related. He married his daughter. And now his daughter dies. So this son-in-law is not related to him anymore. The relationship has been broken. They're not related. Or when he knew the facts about the case, he was a pikech, he was normal, v'nischar, became a deaf mute, and then v'chaz of his pakech, and then he got healed. So now he's normal again. Or he was sighted, pisech, v'nisma, became blind, v'chaz of his patech, and then he was healed from his blindness. Shpui was sane, v'nishtata, became a meshikin, v'chaz of nishtafeh. So in all these cases now, kosher. Why? Zeh klal, kosher tchilaso, osofo, bepaslus pasel. If at the beginning or at the end there was a defect, then he cannot give testimony. But if at the beginning tchilaso was fine, and sofo was fine, just in the middle there was a period of time where he was not, but then he back to sofo, then kosher. So this is tiyuf the dekula. This is a kasha and everything we said by Shmuel, Rav Sheshes, Rav Papa, that somebody who became blind is capable of giving testimony. Well, now we're saying the law is if you're blind at the time of giving testimony, you can't give testimony. So it's a kasha on those guys. Tiyufta, we knock all those guys out of the box. We can't resurrect them. Shalach Rav Rav Yosef. Okay, by the way, tomorrow we'll learn at 4:30.
Okay.
4:30 tomorrow. Shalach Rav Rabbi Yosef bar Chava. Ha'omer al tinok ben abonim. A person says, "Oh, this child, infant among these kids is believed." Nema. We don't really know what is being testified. Rav Yochanan or Einan. Now, my comment. What exactly is he saying? Amar Rabbi Hochikom. Ha'omer al tinok ben abonim. He says, he points to an infant, the father, and says, "Yirash kol nechosai. I want to give all my assets to this son of mine, Neman." Rabbi Yochanan ben Broika, because Rabbi Yochanan ben Broika has already said, a person can change the Yerusha as long as it's somebody who is in line to be Yorishim. He can move all his Yerusha to that person while he's alive. He cannot do it after death. Rabbi Yochanan ben Eno Nema is not believed because he holds Karag Banan who argues. Maski Flarava, Hi Neman Veno Neman. That's not the proper terminology. It should say Eli Yirash v'lo Yirash Maboim. He can inherit him or not. Ela Omer Rav Achikamer. Ha'omer al Tinok ben Abonim B'chorhu. He points to one of the kids and says he's a B'chor Neman. Like we learned yesterday, Rav Yehuda. Rav Yochanan Omar Eno Neman. Like the Rabbanan, remember they had a machloikas, Rav Yehuda and Chacham, whether you can point out a B'chor. Shalach Reval Rav Yosef bar Chava. Ha'omer titol ishti ke'echa ben Abonim. I want my wife to inherit like one of the sons. Noitel is ke'echa ben Abonim. Because you can give a gift during his life. It's like pre-gifting while he's alive. Amar Rava. It's only assets that he has in his estate right now. But something that's going to fall into his assets later, he can't do that. Because he can't make a kinyan on something that doesn't exist. And any sons that are born afterwards, they're going to be included in the Yerusha. A person presents a star which says that the guy owes you money. The lender says, you haven't paid me back anything. The borrower says, I paid half back. Eidim come and give testimony that the whole thing was paid back. So Harei Zed Nishba, the borrower takes a shvu that he paid half, because he's like a moide b'miktsas, right? If you admit to part of the claim, you take a shvu. He doesn't have to pay anything. The goy v'mechza, he gets to, the borrower gets to collect half. But that's only minachos b'nei choyim metaltalin. Aval mishubadim. If the borrower had sold land off to somebody else, lo, the Amri, the buyers of that piece of land can say, Anan Aedim Samchinam. We relied on the Aedim that said the whole debt was paid back, and the Malva doesn't have a lien on it anymore. Bafil Rabbi Kiva Sha'omar Meishiv Avedavi. It's like it's like gefindnis geld. It's like found money, because without the admission of the borrower, the Malva would not have been able to collect anything. That's only a case where there's no edim. The borrower is sort of ashamed or afraid to deny the whole thing. So that's why he admitted to half of it. So that's why he has to take a shvuah. The maski lo mar Ravashi. Adarabba. I feel Rabbi Shimon Elazar she'amar moedib mixes a taina avi, that in such a case he would be like admitting to a partial claim, you have to take a shvuan miliecha deleka edim to come silent. That's the case where there's no edim that help him. He's certainly considered like a person who returned a lost object. Dorsh Marshutrim Mishmed Rav Simi Barashi. Hilchus of Chalani Shmaitza. The halacha and all these sugyas, Kiddushal Raval Rav Yezer Bar Chama, is like Rav Abba. I don't even know Rav Ashi. What about Rav Nachman, who argued about the collection about avodim? Is that also like Rav Abba? Usually we paskin like Rav Nachman by monetary laws. Amarlu, Amarle, Ein Goivin Masnisin law. I have a version of the Baraisa where it says you don't collect from the avodim, which is like Rav Nachman. V'chein Rav Nachman. Then when you say Hilchasa, who is it coming to say that Allah is not like? And the Gemara will analyze this tomorrow. Okay, so tomorrow
4:30.
4:30. Have a good Shabbos, everybody.
That was everyone. Good night.
Shabbos.
Buenas noches.